Bigfoot Classified contains content that is graphic in nature, and listener discretion is advised. Bigfoot Classified relies largely on news documents, eyewitness accounts, press conferences, and interviews. Every episode is produced with respect to the victims, families, and communities involved. Some of the interviews, quotes, and broadcasts have been recreated. Numerous hours of research have been done regarding these stories. And if you have a theory, question, or feel that we've missed something, we encourage you to visit BigfootClassified.com. This is Bigfoot Classified.
Welcome to Bigfoot Classified. In this episode, we're exploring a series of sightings that took place in the 1970s in one of America's most famous national parks, Yosemite. Yosemite National Park, with its breathtaking landscapes and towering granite cliffs, has been a magnet for hikers, campers, and nature lovers for over a century. But during the 70s, it wasn't just the beauty of the park that captured people's attention. There were reports of something unusual, something not easily explained, something that would make even the most seasoned ranger stop in his tracks. These were the Yosemite National Park Bigfoot sightings. Before we dive into the sightings themselves, let's take a moment to paint a picture of Yosemite National Park in the 1970s. This was a time when the park was as wild as ever. With fewer visitors compared to today, the park's vast stretches of wilderness, thick forest, and remote valleys made it the perfect place for someone or something to hide. Yosemite's isolation and rugged terrain have always made it a place where you can feel truly alone, even when you're surrounded by thousands of acres of wilderness. During the 1970s, the parks were still recovering from the environmental impact of increased visitation, and efforts were underway to restore its natural beauty. Campgrounds were less developed, and rangers were fewer and farther between. This combination of isolation and untamed wilderness created an atmosphere ripe for mysterious encounters. The first reports of a strange, unidentified creature in Yosemite surfaced in the early 70s. These initial sightings were often dismissed as mere folklore or the result of overactive imaginations. But as the decade progressed, the reports became more frequent and harder to ignore. In 1971, a group of campers near the park's southern boundary reported hearing strange, guttural noises in the dead of night. These weren't the familiar calls of coyotes or the hoots of owls. These were deep, resonant sounds that seemed to come from something much larger. The campers described the sounds as a mix between a low growl and a whooping call, unlike anything they've ever heard before. At first, the campers thought it might be a bear, but the sounds continued for hours, far longer than any bear would linger near a campsite. The group huddled in their tents, too afraid to investigate, and by morning, the noises had stopped. When they finally emerged, they found the campsite undisturbed. No signs of an intruder, no footprints, nothing out of the ordinary. Yet the eerie sounds from the night before left them convinced that something strange had been in the area. In the summer of 1972, a veteran park ranger named Jim Stanley had his own encounter that would forever change his view of the wilderness. Jim was no stranger to the wild. He had spent over a decade working in national parks and knew the ins and outs of Yosemite better than most. But what he experienced that summer left him questioning everything he thought he knew. Jim was on a routine patrol near Hetch Hetchy Valley, a less visited area of the park known for its stunning scenery and abundant wildlife. It was late afternoon, and Jim was hiking along a remote trail when he noticed something unusual: a large, dark figure moving through the trees about 200 yards ahead of him. At first, Jim thought it was a bear, but as he watched, he realized this creature was walking on two legs. It was much taller and more upright than any bear he had ever seen. Jim estimated the figure to be at least 7 feet tall, covered in dark, shaggy hair. He stood frozen in place, unsure of what he was seeing. The creature moved with a deliberate gait, almost human-like, but with a power and grace that was unmistakably wild. Jim tried to get closer, but the creature seemed to sense his presence and quickly disappeared into the dense forest. When Jim reached the spot where he had seen it, there was no signs, no footprints, no broken branches, nothing to indicate that anything out of the ordinary had been there. Jim reported the sightings to his superiors, but they were skeptical. After all, he had no physical evidence to back up his story. Despite the lack of evidence, Jim couldn't shake the feeling that he had encountered something extraordinary. Over the years, he would hear other rangers and visitors report similar sightings, but the official stance remained the same. There was no concrete proof that anything unusual was lurking in the park.
I've been a park ranger for over a decade. Seen a lot in the wilderness, but nothing like what I saw in the summer of '72. I was out near Hetchy Valley patrolling a quiet, remote trail. It was late afternoon, and everything was eerily still. No birds, no rustling, just silence. Then, I noticed something moving ahead. At first I thought it was a bear, but as I got closer I realized it was walking upright on two legs, and it was tall, much taller than any person. Covered in dark, shaggy hair, it moved with a smooth, deliberate gait, almost like it knew exactly where it was going. Our eyes met for a split second, and I felt a sense of intelligence, awareness. This wasn't just some animal, it was something else. Before I could react, it disappeared into the trees. I ran to where it had been, but there were no tracks, no sign it had ever been there. I reported what I saw, but nobody believed me. They said it must have been a bear, or maybe I was just seeing things. But I know what I saw, and I've never forgotten it.
Later the same year, two hunters from a nearby town came forward with their own story. They had been tracking deer near the northern boundary of the park, deep in the backcountry, far from any established trails. It was a kind of area where few people ventured, and the hunters prided themselves on their knowledge of the wilderness. As they were moving through the densely wooded area, they stumbled upon a series of large, human-like footprints in the soft earth. The prints were massive, easily twice the size of a man's foot, and deeply imprinted, suggesting that whatever made them was extremely heavy. The hunters followed the tracks for several miles, growing more uneasy with each step. The tracks led them deeper into the forest, far from their intended path. As the daylight began to fade, they realized they were being led into an area they weren't familiar with, a place that felt increasingly foreboding. Suddenly, the woods fell silent. The usual sounds of the forest, birds chirping, leaves rustling, insects buzzing, all seemed to stop at once. The hunters exchanged nervous glances. They were seasoned outdoorsmen, not easily spooked, but something about the silence was unnerving. Then, without warning, they heard it, a loud, piercing scream that echoed through the trees. The sound was unlike anything they had ever heard, a mix of rage and pain that sent chills down their spines. It was close, too close. The hunters froze, their hearts pounding in their chest. For a moment, they thought about continuing to follow the tracks, but the scream had shaken them to their core. They decided to turn back and return to camp, moving as quickly and quietly as they could. As they retraced their steps, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. When they finally reached their camp, they packed up their gear and left the park as quickly as possible. They never spoke of their experience again, except to a few close friends, and they never returned to that part of Yosemite. The hunters had no doubt in their minds that they had encountered something truly terrifying, something that wasn't meant to be found. In 1973, a hiker named Carol Peterson captured what might be the most compelling evidence of all. Carol was an amateur photographer with a passion for capturing the beauty of Yosemite's landscapes. She often hiked alone, venturing into remote areas to find the perfect shot. On a crisp autumn morning, Carol set out on a solo hike to a secluded meadow that she discovered on a previous trip. The meadow was surrounded by a thick forest, with a small stream running through it. It was a peaceful, idyllic spot, and Carol was eager to capture its beauty on film. As she approached the meadow, she noticed something moving on the far side, near the tree line. At first, she thought it was a bear, but as she raised her camera to get a better look, she realized it was something else entirely. The creature was tall and covered in dark hair, walking upright on two legs. Carol's heart raced as she snapped several photos in quick succession. The creature seemed to notice her and stopped, turning its head in her direction. For a moment, they locked eyes. Carol was struck by the intelligence and awareness in the creature's gaze. It was unlike anything she had ever seen in an animal before. Then, just as quickly as it had appeared, the creature turned and disappeared into the forest. Carol was left standing in the meadow, her camera still in hand, trying to process what she had just seen. She quickly developed the film when she returned home, and the photos revealed a large, humanoid figure, partially obscured by trees but clearly visible. The images were grainy, as was common with the camera technology of the time, but they were unmistakable.
I was hiking in Yosemite in the fall of '73 when I saw something strange near the tree line. A tall, upright figure covered in dark, shaggy hair. At first I thought it was a bear, but it walked on two legs, moving almost like a human. I snapped a few photos before it turned and looked right at me. There was intelligence in its eyes, not just an animal. Then it vanished into the trees. When I developed the photos, the figure was there. Some people doubted it, but I know what I saw. It wasn't a trick of the light. That moment changed everything for me.
Carol shared the photos with a few trusted friends and eventually with a local newspaper, which published them along with her story. The photos sparked a wave of interest and speculation, with some people convinced that they had showed definite proof of Bigfoot, while others dismissed them as a hoax or a case of mistaken identity. Despite the controversy, Carol stood by her story. She had no doubt about what she had seen that day in the meadow. To her, it was a life-changing experience, one that opened her eyes to the mysteries that still exist in the world. As reports of sightings and strange encounters continued to trickle in throughout the 70s, the debate over the existence of Bigfoot in Yosemite heated up. On one side were the skeptics, who argued that there was no solid evidence to support the claims. They pointed out that the photos could be faked, the footprints could be hoaxes, and the sounds could be misidentified animal calls. Many park officials and scientists remained firmly in the skeptic camp, insisting that without concrete evidence, such as a body or clear video footage, there was no reason to believe that a creature like Bigfoot existed in the park. They argued that the dense forest and rugged terrain of Yosemite could easily play tricks on the mind, leading people to see or hear things that weren't really there. On the other side were the believers, who were convinced that the sightings were real and that something extraordinary was living in the remote wilderness of Yosemite. They pointed to the consistency of the reports, the credibility of the witnesses, and the fact that many of the sightings came from experienced outdoorsmen who knew the difference between a bear and something else entirely. Some believers even suggested that the park's vast, unexplored areas could easily hide a population of Bigfoot creatures, allowing them to avoid detection by humans. They argued that if such a creature existed, Yosemite, with its dense forest, ample food sources, and limited human activity in certain areas, would be an ideal habitat. As the 1970s came to a close, the flurry of sightings in Yosemite began to taper off. Some attributed this to increased human activity in the park, as more visitors meant fewer places for a large, shy creature to hide. Others believed that the creature, or creatures, had simply moved on to a more secluded area. Despite the decline in sightings, the stories from Yosemite in the 70s left a lasting impact. For many, the idea that a mysterious, undiscovered creature could be lurking in one of America's most famous national parks was both thrilling and unsettling. It fueled the imagination and kept the legend of Bigfoot alive in the minds of those who ventured into the wilderness. Over the years, Yosemite has remained a hotspot for Bigfoot enthusiasts and researchers who continue to explore the park in search of evidence. While no definitive proof has ever been found, the stories from the 1970s serve as a reminder that the world is still full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered. The Yosemite sightings of the 70s left a significant legacy, not just in the realm of Bigfoot lore, but also in how we view the natural world. These encounters reminded us that even in a well-traveled national park, there are still places where humans rarely go, places where nature remains wild and untamed. For those who experienced the sightings firsthand, the events of the 70s were life-changing. Many of the witnesses, like Jim Stanley and Carol Peterson, carried their experiences with them the rest of their lives. They became part of a small but growing group of people who believe that Bigfoot is not just a myth, but a real, living creature that has managed to elude scientific discovery. The sightings also sparked a wave of interest in cryptozoology, the study of animals whose existence has not been proven by science. Bigfoot became a symbol of the unknown, a creature that represents the possibility that there is still so much we don't know about our world. For many, the idea of a creature like Bigfoot could exist is a source of wonder and excitement, a reminder that the world is still full of surprises. In the years since Yosemite sightings, numerous theories have been proposed to explain what people saw in the park during the 70s. These theories range from the plausible to the fantastical, each offering a different perspective on the mystery of Bigfoot. One of the most common theories is that the sightings were the result of a previously unknown species of humanoid, an intelligent bipedal creature that has managed to avoid detection by humans for centuries. Proponents of this theory argue that the vast, unexplored wilderness areas of North America could easily hide a population of such creatures, especially in remote places like Yosemite. Another theory suggests that the sightings were the result of a misidentification, that people were seeing bears, other animals, or even humans and mistaking them for something more mysterious. This theory is often supported by skeptics who point out that the human brain is prone to seeing patterns and shapes that aren't really there, especially in low-light conditions or when people are already on edge. A more outlandish theory is that Bigfoot is not a flesh and blood creature at all, but rather a paranormal entity, something that exists on a different plane of reality and only occasionally crosses over into our world. This theory is popular among those who believe in the supernatural and is often tied to reports of UFOs and other unexplained phenomena that seem to occur in the same areas as Bigfoot sightings. Finally, there are those who believe that Bigfoot is a big hoax, that the sightings in Yosemite and elsewhere are the result of elaborate pranks or the work of people looking for attention. While this theory is often dismissed by believers, it remains a possibility, especially in cases where no physical evidence is found to support the claims. Despite the many theories and the ongoing debate, the search for Bigfoot continues. In Yosemite and other wilderness areas across the United States, dedicated researchers and enthusiasts continue to scour the landscape, looking for any sign of the elusive creature. Some searchers rely on traditional methods, like setting up trail cameras and conducting night patrols in known Bigfoot hotspots. Others use more advanced technology, like drones and thermal imaging cameras, in hopes of capturing definitive proof of the creature's existence. While no one has yet produced conclusive evidence, the search shows no signs of slowing down. For many, the pursuit of Bigfoot is more than just finding a creature. It's about exploring the unknown, pushing the boundaries of our understanding, and seeking out mysteries that still exist in our world. As we wrap up this episode of Bigfoot Classified, we're left with more questions than answers, as usual. The Yosemite sightings of the 1970s remain one of the most intriguing chapters in the ongoing search for Bigfoot. Whether you believe in the creature or not, there's no denying the impact these sightings have had in the world of cryptozoology and beyond. Yosemite National Park, with its towering cliffs, ancient forests, and deep valleys, remains a place of wonder and mystery. It's a place where the natural world still holds its secrets, where the line between the known and the unknown is blurred. And perhaps, just perhaps, it's a place where something extraordinary still walks among the trees, waiting to be discovered. Thank you for listening to another episode of Bigfoot Classified. We want to hear your stories. Have you encountered Bigfoot? Or do you have a wild Bigfoot conspiracy theory? Call us at 878-SQUATCH. That's 878-778-2824. And when prompted, say "story voicemail" and leave us a voicemail message. Your story might just be featured in an upcoming episode. And don't forget, subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. If you have a Bigfoot conspiracy to share, email us at info@mediasquatch.com with the subject Bigfoot Classified. Until next time, keep searching for the truth.